What is up? It is time for Making the Grade, our weekly look at the PFF grades from the game that was, and this game was not good. Yep, the Arizona Cardinals got their butts handed to them by the LA Rams, but unfortunately, that seems to be a pattern with the Rams and just in general lately, right? So, but we're going to do what we do. We're going to look at those grades, talk about what we saw, the good, the bad, the ugly. And look at what those trends are. What are the data telling us, and then go from there. I'm gonna say hey to some of the folks that are hanging out with us. Rafael Castillo, good to see you, my friend. Appreciate you hanging out with us. We got Voit Royal. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that, or Volt Royal. What's up, Joe? Appreciate you hanging out with us. We got Class Nasty. Sup, Professor? Sup, Class Nasty? And my good buddy AVB, Aaron Van Buren. Hey, hi, peeps. Hit the like button. Can't talk. Like button. Thank you. Appreciate that. Do we keep Kyler Boyd? That's going to be a topic of conversation, right? And that's going to, we'll talk about his performance. It wasn't great, right? Saltiest Gaming, what up? Appreciate you, my friend. Appreciate you hanging out with us. So let's get out to the grades. Let's get right at it. Talk about it. We're going to start on the offensive side. I'm going to tell you, when I looked at the grades, there were a couple things that were a little surprising. The first thing you might notice is there's some offensive linemen graded pretty high. Up at the top, which, with 4 sacks and what we saw, it sure, seemed like it wasn't great, but we're going to talk about that a little bit. So we're going to start with the offensive line. I always sort it by the pass blocking reps, because that snap counts, that gets the offensive lineman up near the top. Paris Johnson Jr. had a solid game, at least based on the grade, right? Grade 73.7 was good both against pass blocking and run blocking. When we look at in terms of his rookie season, this looks to be his best graded game of his season so far, right? 73.7. So, he's still at a 54.5 overall. So great. He graded well, as did Will Hernandez, 74.3, right? He graded well. Froholt did not grade well, 45.4, 52.8 in that pass blocking, 39.5 in run blocking. Humphreys had his best graded game of the season. I think 75.2, 87 in pass blocking. Run blocking wasn't as good. Let's see, look at his season. Yeah, that was his best grade this year. He's grading still 57.8. Carter O'Donnell, not so good. 56.5 with a 40.0 in the pass blocking. Tristan Cohen played 27 snaps. He graded well. So, that's the thing that was most surprising to me. And that was probably surprising to everyone when you saw, Kobe Turner, who, listen, if you were with us in Mock Draft Mondays, Kobe Turner, the defensive lineman, was one of my favorite players coming out. Wish the Cardinals would have drafted him. He's certainly been very good for the Rams. So when you look at this, you wonder, well, okay, with those 4 sacks, how does this jive? And, my sense is that, the pass rush did tend to come from the interior, right? It did seem like that's where they got the pressure. The defensive tackles, interior defensive linemen. So I think they beat up on Carter O'Donnell a bit. That 40 is probably where part of that comes from in the Froholt's grade. Certainly, you look at like James Conner, only 3 snaps, but he didn't grade well in pass blocking, when he was called on to help with that. So, it seems like that might be the explanation for that in terms of how the grading matches up with the sacks, that they really kind of picked on those 2 folks. So that seems to be a bit of a kind of the issue there. So it was interesting, though, that really in terms of the offensive line, this was actually one of the better graded games we saw. Paris Johnson Jr., Will Hernandez, DJ Humphreys all had let's see, was this Will Hernandez's best grade of the season? It was certainly a good grade. He's had one game where he graded better against Washington, but they all had really good games, at least the grades. Cohen in 27 snaps graded well, but O'Donnell, not so good. Froholt, not so good. And Yelta Froholt, he hasn't graded well throughout the season. He's had, one game of 70, Rest of the game, a few in the 60s, a lot of in the 50s, a few in the 40s. He's been consistently kind of at least as far as the grade goes. I know there's more to playing center than just the grade. Certainly, he's been better than Billy Price. But I don't, I don't feel like he's the long-term answer. I think he's been a nice person for this year who came from the Brown system, so Petzing has familiarity, but he's been kind of like this all year. So I know they Jonathan Gaines, they drafted him, I think, with the intention of turning him into a center. He got injured, so we'll see if they continue to plan to develop him. So the offensive line was kind of interesting in that regard. Let me say hey to some of the folks who jumped in since we got going. Cruz Espudo, thanks for being here. Injuries on defense were very, very noticeable. Man, yeah, the defensive personnel is, it's lacking. And we've talked about this. It's a lot of young players and a lot of players who wouldn't be starting on other teams, right? There's some bright spots, and we'll talk about that. But yeah. Let's see. We got Chris Young. Thanks for being here. Yes, we keep Kyler. It's not even a question at this point. I mean, I still lean on that side. I get that it hasn't been good, but we'll be talking about that a lot in the coming weeks. Maybe a little bit later tonight. Nick, thanks for being here. It's been a while, been a minute, but good to see you back here hanging out with us. I like Kyler, but he ain't it. If we pick top 2, we need to take quarterback in. I mean, I'm still sticking with Kyler in terms of how I would build talent around him. I'll give my short take on that, and we'll be talking about that a lot. Listen, Kyler has not his first game back was nice. The last couple games have not been good. He's been rusty. There've been some issues. Some of it's the personnel around him. Some of it's his throws have been off. But we have seen what Kyler can do in the NFL. He has shown that he can play really well at the NFL level. There was a stretch where he was an MVP candidate, right? He's adapting to a new system. He looked good when they had him under center on that first drive. And I know a lot of people talk about that. Why did they go away from that? I know there's been so much talk about, can he, take snaps under center and do it well? Well, that opening drive, he had like 5 snaps under center, and it looked really good. But we've seen what he can do. If they improve the personnel around him, give him time to get acclimated to the system, I think he's going to be great. I think it's going to work. If you draft a quarterback, maybe it's an improvement. Maybe it isn't. I mean, first overall pick hasn't worked so good. CJ Stroud has worked well. If it's me, I'm going to use this draft capital and build a really good defense. I'm going to get the offensive line better, get him maybe another pass catcher, build a team around him. He's shown he can play at the NFL level. Give him those tools and a good defense, and give him that chance. That's what I'm doing. I know that's not going to be popular with some people, but that's what I'm doing. If it's me, but again, we'll have plenty of time to talk about that this offseason, right? So offensive line grades were uneven. That you had a couple guys that graded poorly, a couple guys that graded well. The run blocking wasn't as good as the pass blocking for most of them, with the exception of Carter O'Donnell, and Furholtz. His run blocking was worse, but his pass blocking wasn't great. All right, so that's what we're looking at in terms of that. Now let's look at some of the other positions. Now we got all these. This was the interception on the 2-point conversion, right? So you got all these defensive players, but getting to tight ends. Okay. Trey McBride, graded well, had a solid game. None of the pass catchers had a great game in terms of stats, but he still looks solid. He's been solid all year. Elijah Higgins, who's had a rough go of it this year, had a nice game and had a really nice catch, so glad to see that. Swaim didn't grade particularly well, but he's been solid and steady. So as far as the tight ends go, McBride is continuing to do what we've seen from him. He is the 7th highest graded tight end in the NFL per PFF. So you look at his games this year, he's had a couple, down games, but one awesome game, but overall has been really good, grading 77.8 for the season. That is the 7th best tight end in the league in terms of PFF grade, right? So loving what we're seeing from McBride. Couldn't be happier. This is a bright spot. This is a foundational piece in this offense you build with, right? Higgins, again, up and down. He had a nice game. Swaim has been more of a blocker. We'll get into the mock draft stuff, in the off season. I think the Cardinals should draft another tight end somewhere between rounds 3 and 5, maybe 6, someone who kind of can be a complement. I think there's this team, they're going to want to use a lot of 2 tight end sets. I think having, 2 guys, someone who can kind of be that second tight end, with McBride, and then your third tight end would be someone like a Swaim or a Higgins, kind of a guy like that. So, but love what we're seeing with McBride. Real quick, Daniel, thanks for being here. Danny Courtyard. Kyler Murray just doesn't have enough talent around him. I say we keep him at least through next year, see what he can do. But I think we need a new offense coordinator. I know people have started kind of sour on Petzing a little bit. I still want to see what he can do. I want to give him a little bit more time as well. Even Petzing, but I do agree, Kyler, build some more talent around him, give him some more time. Again, a lot of young players, a lot of players injured, right? It's year one of the reset. So let's get these young players some experience and see what next year looks like. All right, going into wide receiver. Rondale Moore didn't have his grade. This is kind of what his season has been like. The grades haven't been particularly good. They're using him a lot of gadget stuff, right? If you look at throughout the year, it's a lot of grades in that 50s, right? So, and occasionally some nice plays, but they don't seem to be really utilizing him as well as we would like, right? Rondale Moore, Greg Dortch though had a nice game. He had some nice play, a nice catch, a couple nice plays. So love seeing him out there. When he gets a chance to play, he produces, right? So love to see that. Want to see more of that, right? Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown had one of his better games of the season, not only in terms of PFF grade, but also stats, which that's a low bar, but he had. He led with 88 yards on 6 receptions, right? And had a solid grade of 69.2. Bocelli on 9 snaps, grade of 54. Pascal on 7 snaps, 52.1. I think that's all the receivers. So, Hollywood Brown had a nice game. Dortch had a nice game as far as receivers go. Real quick, let's say hey to a couple other folks and get a few more comments. Bird Gang. Gang. Thanks for being here. Kyle and Pestic just needed an off season together. I would like to see that too before I kind of, judge them on that, right? Plus, Kyler could use an offense with the new wide receiver. Salty is asking what position would be the best to use their salary cap down versus draft. That's a great question. Okay, I'm gonna get a little nerdy roster building strategy with you here. In my opinion, when it comes to how you build a roster, and this isn't just something like from me. This is something that I've heard people who like people like some of the Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, which you need to follow them if you're not already, talking about roster building strategies in some of their podcasts, and other people who kind of really look at this stuff and know what they're talking about. You want to draft premium positions, right? Your left tackles or right tackle, really any tackle, right? Receiver, quarterback, edge rusher, cornerback, right? You want to draft those premium positions, draft them, develop them, and then you extend those guys, right? If they work out, you sign them to extensions. That's where your big free agent money is, retaining your premium position guys, right? You draft them. If you find one, you pay them and you keep them. The best guys at those positions rarely make it to the free agency market. If they do, they get crazy overpaid. But most of the time in free agency, those premium position players, you're overpaying for guys that are like B level or C level talent, right? So you want to draft the premium positions. You want to hit on those. And when you hit on them, then you pay them and extend them. In free agency, what you're doing is a couple things. One, you're filling out some depth with some veterans, right? You're looking for value guys. Especially if it's a premium position, you're looking more for depth and value. But you are looking at opportunities to kind of get some guys that like Froholt is a good example. He's not been great, but he's a guy that if you need him to start, he'll start, right? He's been okay, right? You want to try to draft his replacement, but if you need him to start, he's fine. Or if you want to get a little bit of an upgrade to push you over the top at a non-premium position like guard, safety, middle linebacker, you can go ahead and pay for one of those guys in free agency, and you're going to overpay for them a little bit, but because they're non-premium positions, that overpay isn't going to hit your cap as badly, right? It's like, you might pay $8 million a year for a guard who's maybe that's, a little overpaying for a good guard, but it's not like you're killing your cap by paying way overpaying, right, for a mediocre tackle. So in terms of in terms of free agency, that's where you want to get your middle linebacker, another guard, guys like that are there, because even like look at like Kaiser White has been a nice player for the Cardinals this year, but he wasn't crazy expensive, right? What was it, like 6 million, I think, or something like that. Like, so with free agency, you want to go, that's where you want to kind of compensate with some of the non-premium player positions, and you might overpay a little bit, but it's not as big of a deal. So that's kind of my take, and kind of, again, based on things I've heard from other people. Great question though. Let's see, a couple other folks get a couple more comments in here. Cruz saying, don't understand how you see Kyler making same plays with poor town. Thinks this guy stinks. It's all his fault. Yeah, I mean, I think there's, I would agree. I think now he has been off. I will say, watching Kyler these last couple of games, he's been off. But I think, again, he's coming back from an injury, being off for so long in a new system. I'm going to give him some room. Volt Royal saying, I worry garbage time is going to inflate some of the numbers. It might, right? Let's see. Chris asking, do you foresee any scenario where it makes sense to draft Bowers? He and McBride complement each other, and there's such thing as too much talent in the position. That's an interesting one, because the tight end out of Georgia, I mean, he's supposed to be, really great, really elite, one of the best tight ends come out in a long time. I live in Georgia. I was actually watching some of the Georgia game this last Saturday, and he was impressive. I could see that. I don't know that that's where the direction they're going to go. I think in the first round, I think, to me, I could, obviously if Marvin Harrison Jr. is a player that everyone's talking about, I'd love to see that. But I think like cornerback's a possibility in the first round. I think like if they can get that guy Newton, the interior defensive lineman, that's a need. Maybe they go tackle. There's a lot of other places they could go. So I don't know that they'll do that, especially if what you're looking for is, if you're looking for maybe a complimentary tight end. But who knows? Certainly they, Monty comes from the New England where they had, some dual threat tight ends. So it wouldn't shock me, right? So good question. Let's see. Oh, Bird Gang, I'm here for the nerdy love Seth. Nice. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, glad that that was helpful, or that I answered your question. It was a great question. Thanks for bringing that. Chris Young, left guard and defensive line seem like two positions that make sense to get high-end stars for agency. Yeah, so like left guard, I think you can fix that for sure in free agency. Defensive line, you're not. High-end starters are hard to find in free agency. I think interior defensive line's a little tricky. Like, you can get some depth there, but the high-end starters don't make it to free agency. So I think I would like to see them add an interior defensive lineman in free agency to help kind of, add some depth, but they need a draft there as well, right? Lance, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us. Sad season of Cardinals football. I'll be at the game this weekend, though. Who's going with me? Yeah, I wish I could. Like that would be a fun game to go to, the Pittsburgh game, I believe. So yeah, that would be I've always wanted to go to Pittsburgh. I've heard it's a cool place. So yeah. So anyway, the little off-season talk. So let's get back to the grades. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. So we talked about the receivers, we talked about offensive line, we talked about tight ends. Let's real quick look at halfbacks. DeMarcado, graded reasonably well, 70.3, his run grade of 67.6. Michael Carter, we saw him in action. In fact, got quite a few snaps, 27. He graded fairly well, right? James Conner in 30 snaps graded reasonably well, but they kind of went away. They didn't do a lot of running as the game kind of got out of hand, right? So the stats weren't really there, but the grades were decent, right? So yeah, for sure. real quick. Salty is saying they had some killer tight ends doing wah, wah, oh, too soon. Probably not too soon, but yeah, oof. I see what you did there. Raphael, did I miss Kyler Murray segment? Oh, I can't wait to see what you have to say about. Well, we talked a little bit about that, so we're going to talk about that now. We got running backs graded reasonably well, but you look at the running stats. There wasn't a lot of running going on, but that's game script, right? When you're down by that much. All right, let's talk about it. Kyler Murray. Let's first just look at the grade. 57.9, not good. His passing grade, right, was 57.0, and his run grade was 61.6. He didn't get a lot of running in. And he was kind of limping a little bit there towards the end, right? And then his hand was kind of bending up. So, he only had one run for 2 yards. Very un-Kyler Murray like, right? So I am concerned in terms of, is he banged up now? In terms of the limp, like the knee, it'll be interesting to see if it's a minor setback or aggravation of the injured knee, or if it's something different. Certainly, when he kind of went down for that one sack, it didn't get a lot. It wasn't a major contact, so that was concerning. But the fact he kept playing, it didn't seem like it was serious, right? So I guess that's good. But he certainly seemed hampered in terms of the running. The hand, maybe that, was affecting some of the throws. But yeah, listen, Kyler Murray, like if you look at the raw stats, they're fine. They're not great. They're not horrible. 256 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. There was the interception on the 2-point conversion. Rating 83.2 isn't great. QBR 39.9 isn't great, but that's not horrific. Like, it's not the ugliest game you've seen, right? But it isn't great, right? We want a lot better. So listen, Kyler Murray, it's been rough. Again, he's coming back from an injury. It's a new offense. So it hasn't been great. I'm still giving him time. I'm not hitting the panic button, but listen, I know the Kyler Murray as a subject has been very polarizing. Some people love him. Some people hate him. I have been, pretty adamant team Kyler in terms of, I believe you build around him. I've seen what he can do at the NFL level. So I still, and I've seen how bad quarterback play can be. I mean, this year it's been kind of rough. And, and again, with rookie quarterbacks, coming in, maybe you hit, maybe you don't. I am still building on Kyler if it's me. But I look at the games, I look at the grades, and I continually reassess my own positions. Like no one's going to convince me to change my opinion. I'm just stubborn like that. No one's going to debate me into changing my view on on a player, a coach, or anything. But I do change my opinion over time as I gather more information. So, I was generally fairly supportive of Cliff Kingsbury early on. Over time, I saw some things that led me to think, yeah, they probably did need to move on, right? I'm still supportive of Kyler, but I'm paying attention to everything that goes on the field. I'm gonna kind of not this season. To me, it's just him acclimating. For me, next season is where I'm gonna kind of really have more of an assessment. Some people I know want to do that earlier. I guess what I'm trying to say is, listen, as much as I've been a Kyler supporter, if next year with a full off season and some additional players and some additional kind of building of the roster, if it's not looking good next year, I might change my opinion. But this season, there's not really anything I'm going to see this season that's probably going to change my view. So at this point, I'm still sticking with him. I've seen what he can do. I believe that if you build a good roster around him, it'll be good. But yeah, so that's Raphael. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but there's my Kyler take. Keith Davis, I appreciate you being here, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us. Sorry I'm late. Time to listen to Joe. Appreciate that. Kyler's still recovering. Not sure why anyone would expect him to return to peak form. I agree with you, right? Payo time, Zach, my buddy. If y'all following Payo Time. He's a Rams content creator who's a really good dude. I appreciate you hanging out with us, Zach. I hope you are doing well, my friend. Thoughts on Gannon compared to Cliff? I like Gannon. I think I liked Cliff as a person. He just is, I think Cliff was more of a little more of a kind of little less discipline, a little less structure. Gannon seems to be much more about, we do things this way. We're on time to meetings. I like what I'm seeing from Gannon, even though the wins aren't there. I think players are playing hard for him. You're hearing things like the culture are good. You're hearing things from players that the culture is good. So, I am still liking what I'm seeing from Gannon. Thanks for being here, Zach. Appreciate you. Keith saying our receiver corps need major overhaul. McBride is a star in the making. Wilson continues his pattern of missing games. Hollywood is number 2 and more drops too many balls. Yeah, they need some work there. I really like Wilson for what he is. It is sad that he's missed a couple games. I think Hollywood's ideal is number 2. I do like keeping Hollywood Brown. I think what he does in terms of taking the top off the defense is hard to find someone. So I still think you build with him, but like to see someone else. But McBride, yeah, for sure. Corey, appreciate you being here. What's up, Joe? A voice of reason over the last 36 hours. Always welcome. I try, right? I try not to be a knee jerk, right? So I appreciate you, though. I hope your podcast's going well. Let's see. And Joe, I have a question, but I'm not trying to trash talk. Hey, I know you, Zach. You're never trying to trash talk. So if you want to throw your question out there, I'd be happy to answer that. All right. So, yeah, it was a rough game, right? It was a rough game. Let's look at the defensive side of things, though, right? Okay. And there were some ups and downs. There were some nice things there. And Zach's question is a defensive question. So here we go. Aaron Donald has had some of his best games in Arizona. Why do you think the Cardinals have struggled in the last 10 years versus Donald? That's a good question. I think part of it is our interior offensive line in particular has been suspect, right? And Aaron's chiming in, and we've never invested in the offensive line outside of 2015. So, our offensive line, I don't remember a time when the Cardinals had a really good offensive line. They've had decent at points. Maybe there were a couple stretches like, 2015, right? But yeah, it's that interior offensive line in particular where we've just never really done a good job of investing. Like the Cardinals have, like they drafted Jonathan Cooper and then he got injured and was never the same. So when they have invested, Steve Keim, who as an offensive lineman, you think would do a better job scouting them, I don't know, whiffed when they did invest, right? But yeah. So I think the biggest, it's our interior offensive line in particular. So yeah. All right. So let's look at the Cardinals defensive grades, right? Then we're going to go by positions. We're going to start with the linebackers. Chris Barnes had a nice game, 75.8 in 27 snaps. Right, with Kaiser White out, we're needing him to stand up. So he graded well, right? Our other, the middle linebackers, Owen Papo, the rookie, played 4 snaps, graded reasonably well in limited snaps. So Josh Woods, oof, right? And that 27.8 run grade is really part of that. And listen, the run defense, Kyron Williams, right? He had a heck of a game, and he had a heck of a game last time he played the Cardinals, right? Kyron Williams, 143 yards, 8.9 yard average. Then he had his 61 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, but like he was a beast, right? And that, if you look at, that's really what brought the thing that really hurt his Woods grade, right? So, and we're going to see that happen. We're going to see that again, that it's that run blocking grade wasn't good for a lot of players, but middle linebackers, Josh Wood, not so good. He led in snaps, for linebackers with 67, Papo in limited snaps, right? And Barnes graded well, okay, as the weak side linebacker. Getting to we'll look at safeties. Since we're here, Jalen Thompson graded well, especially in coverage, really good in coverage. Run defense was a little bit low. Buda Baker, decent grade. The run defense was a little bit low, but we're seeing that's going to be a pattern, right? So as far as other safeties, we had Seshuri had his customary 2 snaps, right? He gets like 1 or 2 snaps a game, 60.3, right? Now let's look at cornerbacks. And this is, in fact, let's see if we can bring coverage snaps up here. That'll help bring the cornerbacks up here. Cornerback was a position where there were some nice things. Like, first thing that we saw was that Marco Wilson was not the starter. In fact, I didn't see any. It looks like he didn't have any snaps. We've been talking about this for weeks. Marco Wilson, they keep marching him out there as a starter, number 1 cornerback. He keeps struggling, and we've been asking, when are they going to give someone else a chance? Well, we got our answer. This is one of the few bright spots in this game. Keitrell Clark had a return and played well, right? He was he played 59 snaps as an outside cornerback, and graded at 70.1. His coverage grade was 78.5. The run defense grade, which again struggled across the board, right, was kind of what brought his grade down a little bit. But love seeing that from Keitrell Clark. And he was a start at the beginning of the season, was a little up and down, had a nice game against San Francisco, but graded a lot in the 50s, a few games lower than that. Comes back, plays 59 snaps, grades at 70.1. His overall grade of 51.4 is still better than Marco Wilson's, right? So that was really nice to see. And I love the pick of Keitrell Clark. I love that he's back out there on the field. Want to see more of him. Starling Thomas, didn't play particularly well. Undrafted rookie free agent. He's still graded better than Marco Wilson this year. He got injured and didn't return, right? So his grade wasn't great, but Garrett Williams, again, 64.5 overall grade is okay. Again, the run defense grade brought it down, but the coverage grade 70.6, really nice, right? And with Garrett Williams, overall grade for the season is 69.5. That is solid. In fact, that is good for, where does he grade? Let's see. He is the 34th highest cornerback. Okay, so Garrett Williams grades 34th. He's the 34th highest cornerback grade. Okay, now remember, most teams play 3 cornerbacks with significant amount of snaps. So, being in the number 34 for a rookie, having the 34th highest grade is really, really good. Now the Cardinals, you wish they had more players that were grading well like that, but that is not insignificant to be ranked 34th amongst cornerbacks as a rookie. Right now, they're playing him still primarily in the slot, and when you look at his snaps, you see, they're not playing him outside. So we'll scroll over here. When you look at his alignment snap count, 49 snaps as a slot corner, 3 as an outside corner, a few in the box, when they bring him up like a safety, 1 at free safety, right? They move their players around. That just happens, but he's still playing primarily the slot. I would like to see what it looks like with him playing outside, but listen, he has been really good. And if you're getting that kind of solid play out of the slot from him, I don't hate that. Right. So that's a nice bright spot, right? That is something I'm glad to see, right? Garrett Williams playing well. Keitrell Clark back out there. That was nice to see. Thomas, again, didn't have a great game, but, to be an undrafted free agent playing is a nice sign. Is an accomplishment of itself. But now I will say, I noted, during the game, I even tweeted out that I had not seen much of Marco Wilson. We're not seeing any of him. But then I saw number 27 Wilson, and I was like, wait, did Marco change his number? No, it's Devad Wilson, a cornerback undrafted free agent who was a practice squad. He's a practice squad player who they elevated for the game, right? And this was his first game playing with the Cardinals. So we had a different Wilson, right? Played about as well as Marco Wilson, but he's undrafted rookie. So when we look at the cornerbacks, though, there were a couple nice things. Keitrell Clark and Garrett Williams, right? Those are a couple bright spots. Right. Real quick, Thunder saying, what do you think? Draft a center move, Yelda Froholt to guard. I don't know that Yellow Froholt is going to necessarily be all that much better at guard. I don't know. I mean, I think you keep Froholt as a, if nothing else, as a backup who can start if you need him to at center and or guard. I think they need to add a guard, whether it be maybe free agency, to get someone who's more of kind of a bona fide starter. I wouldn't mind that. I'd like to see him draft a guard, but I don't know. They if they still see Gaines as that guy, but I'd probably still like to see them draft a legitimate center. I would like to see that. But yeah, Froholt is okay. I think they need someone better long term, but I definitely like having him as a guy who can start if you need him to. Thanks for the question. Okay. Now let's look at we've looked at the cornerback, safeties, and linebackers. Now let's look at like the defensive. We'll get the pass rush snaps out here and look at the defensive line and edge rushers. All right. Defensive line, Ledbetter didn't grade particularly well. 60.1 was okay. Yeah. Dante Steels, this was sad to see, right? Dante Steels has been playing really nice lately, but he had an awful game, and the run defense of 29.2 was a big part of that. Right. That was not good. I still like his future with this team. I like him as a part of that defensive line rotation. We saw his first couple games were rough. Then he's just played really well, with the exception of that Seattle game. Just played really well, and he's had a down game right this time. So that brought it down. His overall grade is 60.0 on the nose. Again, a rookie had a bad game against a Rams team that was running all over us. I'm not going to overreact to that. It was disappointing to see him have a bad game. Still like him as a part of the defensive line. You need a nice rotation of guys. He seems like he can be part of that, right? Phil Hoskins, a guy who's a practice squad elevation guy, he struggled too, right? Run defense was the big reason there, right? So not great from him. Ben Still, a guy that they signed as a free agent who's kind of seen some action, didn't grade particularly well. He was better than Stills or Hoskins. Roy Lopez, solid, right? Wasn't too bad. Wasn't great, but he continues. This is what he's been like for the Cardinals, right? If you look at his grades throughout the season, most weeks he's been from okay to good, right? I mean, a couple little bit down weeks, but this has been a really nice pickup. He was drafted in 2021 by the Houston Texans out of Arizona, right? A nice nose tackle pickup, graded 69.1 for the season. This is a guy that, keep him around as part of that rotation. Is he your starting nose tackle? Maybe, maybe not, but certainly like him as a piece, right? Again, you need, for your defensive line, you need a rotation of guys. You'd like to have a couple really good players, but you need guys that you can rotate in and move around. So could be a piece of that, right? Then we look at, the linebackers, the edge rushers. Dennis Gardeck had a nice grade, right? Wasn't too bad, 67.3. Ojulari's grade was down. That was more about the run defense, right? A lot of players struggled. His pass rushing grade, 73.5 was nice, right? So, okay. Zaven Collins was okay, 62.0, right? His pass rush grade was low. His run defense grade was okay, right? And then with Cameron Thomas, we've been talking about him. Not a good game for him grade-wise. This is a guy that we've talked about in the past that we had high hopes for. Started out the season okay with that exception of that San Francisco game, but it's gotten worse. His snaps are kind of, been meandering at 20. Not really getting the pressures and the sacks like we would like. So it's disappointing. I don't know if how much of a part of the future he's going to be, right? We've talked about this. Demikaji had a rough game. He had a really good start to the year, was really good, and he's kind of trailed off of late, right? You look grades in the 50s, now 40s, right? Overall grade 67.6, but it's been a little bit of a decline for him, right? So when we look at the defensive line and edge rushers, uh, you know, Gardeck was okay, but overall, and this shouldn't be surprising, right? Because the run defense, they all got run over, right? It seemed like. So Corey Carr saying, my main question with O-line specifically, the interior is why can't they not handle any type of D-line since all season long? That coaching on top, not great personnel. Yeah. Um, like Will Hernandez, for example, he's a strong offensive lineman, but he's maybe not as mobile and nimble, so he can probably get beat by those a little more than he will by a bull rush, right? And yeah, I mean, I think they need. I mean, left guard has been a problem all year. Tristan Colin has played well when he's been called upon. I'd like to see him. I'm not sure why they're not starting him, to be honest. That's kind of confusing to me, but yeah, it's been rough, right? And yeah, Cam Thomas can be a kind casualty very soon. It's starting to look like that, right? Otis Driftwood, thanks for being here. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Yes, please. Thank you. Smack the like button on this video, please, please, please. So yeah, so it was rough, right? Overall, kind of a few players with some nice grades, but a lot of low grades, and that run defense, right? I mean, the run defense grade, Barnes had a good grade run defense. Gardeck was okay, but it gets ugly quickly. And that, what we saw Karen Williams do, right? He just really ran all over the place. So let's real quick look at the Rams grades. We've got, on their offensive side, the right guard, Kevin Dotson, had a heck of a game, run blocking especially, right? So that was a big part, I'm sure, of helping Kyron Williams, who also had a really outstanding grade, not surprisingly. Tutu Atwell had a nice game, couple nice catches, right? Right tackle, haven't seen, right? You see F tackle, Alaric Jackson. Their offensive line, right? Royce Freeman graded well. Siva Villa, the rookie out of TCU, graded well. So not surprising that the offensive line graded well for them, considering what they were doing running the ball, right? Stafford was okay. Higbee had a nice game, right? Cooper Kupp didn't have a great game, right? But they didn't need him to, right? Puka Nacua, not a great game, but they didn't need him to. On defense, Jordan Fuller, the safety, had a really nice game, especially in coverage. Akilla Witherspoon, nice game, really good grade in coverage, right? The cornerbacks, and the Cardinals couldn't get much going in the passing game. Safeties and cornerbacks, right? So that's not surprising to see that, right? Certainly, you had some other nice grades. Maybe what's surprising is Donald, although as dominant as he's been, didn't have 70's a nice grade, right? It's good. Kobe Turner, 75, that's a nice grade. Really good pass rush. So those are solid grades, but not as high as you might have thought. Down into the 40s with some of these grades. We're not going to go through all of those, right? Some of those depth guys. But anyway, it wasn't a good game for the Cardinals, right? So yeah, Gannon Balls, thank you for being here. Thanks for what you do, man. I could Google these stats, but I don't know what they mean. Thanks for breaking a lot of this stuff down for us. I appreciate that. Your channel does this community service. Thank you. That I really appreciate hearing that. That means a lot. Yes, thank you. Sincerely, it's nice to hear that. I appreciate that. Corey Cards, Avia should be ours. Yeah, listen, that's a guy I really like, though. His grades have been a little bit. He was a guy we talked about a lot on Mock Draft Mondays. His grades this year have been okay, I guess. 60s, 50s, a lot. He's grading at 61.6. That's not too bad. Yeah, that's yeah. So let's look at the Cardinals. Let's look at the Cardinals kind of what the depth chart or the roster looks like in terms of. I like to do this at the end, kind of look at. Let's go to the base, kind of just what do the grades look like on the field here, right? Baker and Thompson got those there. Got some nice green there, right? We know what they do. Barnes, unlimited snaps. He's calling into service now. He's graded well. Woods not so great. Clark and Thomas, okay. Not great, but okay. Gardeck and Collins, they're grading well. Lopez still is. Ledbetter, not so great. But I don't know, the grades here look better than they have in the past, but it's still, there's still a lot of issues, right? When we go to the nickel, then that brings in Demikaji, Ojulari, Williams, right? unfortunately, this defense has been worse than these grades look. I'll just put it that way. Dana Robinson, thanks for being here. Better quarterback play, but still seeing the yard stack up, frustrating, but encouraging for the future. I agree. For sure. On the offensive side, that offensive line, Hernandez is graded reasonably well, but everyone else, kind of those yellowish 50s. That's not great. I mean, it's not good. So the offensive line has been it's been a bit of an issue. Hernandez has been the steadiest piece of that, right? So, that's a concern. They need to do some upgrade, especially, like I said, left guard is a major area of need. I think Paris Johnson Jr. is going to move over to left tackle next year. Then they're going to have to figure out right tackle. But yeah, there's some issues there. McBride, that's something we love seeing. 7th graded tight end. Dortch, when he gets to play, looks good. Hollywood Brown has been okay. Rondale Moore, the grades haven't been great. There have been a few nice plays, but they just don't seem to be utilizing him a lot as a receiver. Connor has been awesome, but he's not enough by himself, right? And then Murray, we talked about that. It's been a kind of a rough start to his return. I'm still giving him time. When we go to the 2 tight end sets, then we bring in Swaim. That's a little bit different look. His grade's not particularly good, but he's more of a blocker. So that's what we're looking at. It was a rough game. We know that. But we've been talking about this all year, right? This season is about getting Kyler healthy, getting him acclimated to the system. It's about building the culture. And it's about getting the young players on the field. And, we are seeing that. They are playing their young players, right? Keichel Clark's out there again. Garrett Williams, once he's healthy, he's out there, right? They're playing McBride, getting him increase his snaps. Obviously, Ertz injury played a part in that, but he is now the tight end 1. Dante Stills, BJ Ojulari, they're getting those guys out there. It's a rough season. Hold on to your hats, buckle up, hang in there. Better days are coming. This offseason is going to be exciting with all the draft capital they have. It's going to be interesting to see what Monty does, now with a full year under his belt. So, but yeah, rough game. And, the schedule doesn't get much easier. The Bears are, I guess, the easy team that we have coming up, but not so good. Right. So we're going to get out of here though. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Thanks, for watching. Thanks for clicking like. Thanks for supporting what we do here. We'll get through the season together. It's a rough one, but we will get through it. I'm going to throw up the shout outs for the channel members as we get out of here. Calvin, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Bye week couldn't come soon enough. Amen. Right. Yeah. Only 5 more this year, right? Yes, for sure. So we're going to put up the shout outs to the channel members, get that going. And then we will get out of here and we will see you all next time. Thank you for being here. See you next time. Peace.
Hey, yo, it's Joe. He's the host of Mock Draft Monday on the Cardinals Show. So join the live, hit like and subscribe. Enjoy the podcast tonight. Enjoy the podcast tonight.